Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a forum where authors are able to talk about how they wrote their books, what their journey was, how they publish their books, and how they market them. It is also a place where people who love to find out how stories become books can come and listen to the author speak. It is said that love is the most important thing in the world. And we have a guest with us today, Sanford Hinden, and he is going to tell us how that happens. Sandy, speak to us.
Thanks for inviting me here today. Love is the most important thing in the world. I think we all inwardly feel that and know it, and we yearn for it. And so it comes with us as children. We need to be loved by our parents. We need to be loved by other people in the community. And often we don't get that. John Bradshaw was a family therapist, and he had said about 25 years ago, I remember seeing it on PBS, that on Channel 13, that about 95% of us grow up in dysfunctional families. So that translates into a lot of pain issues, a lot of abandonment issues, a lot of abuse issues, and people get hurt. They grow up with feelings of inferiority and insecurity. That gets translated into addictions, into abuse, into conflict, into marriages that don't work, into our not having the ability to communicate compassionately and lovingly with each other until we create a process for ourselves, a recreation, a reparenting of ourselves, and learn to love ourselves, learn skills to love each other, to communicate in a compassionate, loving way, to create loving families, loving communities, and to use that love in our creations, in our work, and to love nature and love the world. So that's the progression that I use in the book.
And the book
and my work is Seven Keys to Love. Right.
And everyone is going to pick this up. Not everyone, but some people are going to pick it up and think it's a dating book, right? But that's not what it is.
No, the second and the third chapters deal a lot with emotional love that you need in dating, and also communication skills that you need in dating, and you need for the next chapter, which is on family love. So the first chapter is self-love. The second chapter is emotional love. The third is I get them mixed up once, is physical love. And I put that third rather than before, because if you get yourself into physical relationships before you have emotional skills and self-love, you're apt to get yourself into trouble, picking the wrong partners. And then there's family love is chapter 4. I called the chapter 5, I called it at that time platonic altruistic love. Today I would call it community love. Then the 6th chapter is creative love and love for the arts, and the 7th, and nature, and the 7th chapter would be love for the universe and universal love, unconditional love, love for the creator, love for the creation. And then an 8th chapter is about using what I call transformational love to bring it back to the world, to help recreate and create a new world where we can be more compassionate, kinder, and loving to each other.
Well, that's my next question, actually, is how does a person use this book to create a healthy love in their own lives and also with their families and ultimately the community? I really think the political situation today, not to get into politics, talks a lot about the community and our relationship with the community and what we need to do for each other.
Well, the first step is self-love, is really learning to deeply appreciate, value, and love yourself with kindness and sweetness and gentleness. Learn to develop self-talk. Usually we have talking going on in our head that can be very negative and judgmental. So it's learning to transform that inner talk, that self-talk, to to nurturing self-talk, encouraging, empowering self-talk, and feel good about ourselves and feel loving inside and peaceful and gentle inside ourselves. That took me 40 years to do, 45 years, almost 50 years to do. 55 years to do.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, and so it's a long journey and a long process. I called this book Love's Journey when I first started it, which was 30 years ago, 35 years ago. I called it Love's Journey, and love continues to be a journey through all those dimensions of the self, others, family, community, into the arts, nature, to the creation. So it's a journey that we go on to learn and understand what is this thing, love, that we so yearn for. And now its applications are in the world, in communities. If you can get yourself to be self-loving, and if you can somewhat balance your family and become loving inside your family, you're actually helping to care for the world that way by being loving with your children and your grandchildren. So you're helping the world that way. We have so many people that do such hurtful things in the world, in the economic system, in the communities, that we need to nurture and cultivate healthy children. So it's so important for grandparents and parents to treat their children with kindness and love and respect so that they can grow up to be more respectful people and make contributions to society. I look at the world now and I see a couple of things. And my work, I started out first in studying psychology, then social psychology, then sociology, then economics, then international relations. I see, and I did a lot of work with the United Nations, I see this is what we need. We have a population that took 1 million years to get to 1 billion in 1800. Now, we added 5 billion people to the planet in 200 years. 5 billion in 200 years. That took 1 million years to get to 1 billion. Now, every 10 years, we're adding 1 billion people that took 1 million years to create to the planet. We're at 7 billion now. They say if that 1 billion is added each year, it will go up to 8 billion, 9 billion, 10 billion. So by 2050, the UN had projected 9 billion. I think that estimate is wrong. I think it could be 10 to 12 billion people on the planet by 2050. So how can we have a sustainable planet when we have too many people without jobs? And I said at the United Nations International Conference, Interfaith Conference for Peace in about 2005, that you'll never have peace in the world without having work for people.
So tell me about, were you part of that committee? Or were you a guest speaker?
I was just
and what was it? It was the United Nations conference on, what did you call it?
After 9/11, the international community, particularly the Muslim community at the United Nations from Indonesia and from other countries, were trying to make peace as well. And so I believe the Muslim nations were behind that conference, and they called it the Interfaith Conference for Peace. And they invited all religions to the UN to have a big conference. There must have been about 2,000 people there. I wasn't on the panel. I was just an audience member. But I stood up with 2,000 people there, and I said that unless you have work for people, we need some kind of World Works program. I said, in particular, men are going to get into trouble, as the terrorists were doing. So I said that because men have a tendency to, if they don't have work, they're going to sell drugs, guns, sex, violence in many ways, and they're going to get involved now in terrorism, hijacking, and all kinds of terrible things.
Sounds like the news.
Sounds like the news. So I came back to Long Island, and I actually created the Long Island Men's Center to help men on Long Island. And I've given it over to another president now. But women have a tendency to help each other more. There's 14 major women's organizations on Long Island. They help each other. Men compete with each other and hurt each other. So now what I see is that we need what I call, if to get to a sustainable planet, we need sustainable communities.
And that's your concept of enlightened, loving, sacred, sustainable economies?
That's right, because I see that both capitalism and communism are not providing an economic system that works for everyone and works for the planet, works for nature itself. So without nature, we're going to lose what is our basis for existence. So we need to care for and love nature, and we need to care for and love each other. There's an image that I saw, I heard a little story about that hell was people sitting across from each other with gigantic utensils, unable to feed themselves. And then a picture was like heaven, where there was people using those same gigantic utensils to feed each other across the table. And that made me realize that we need some kind of economic system that's based on, first, loving yourself, loving each other, and loving the planet, loving nature. And all goods and services can be derived from those needs of loving self, loving others, and loving nature. And then I realized that from the British, the old system of Commonwealth came to mind, and that it was never really fully developed, I think. But so we need, what could Commonwealth be? Like you have Massachusetts is called the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and Virginia. So now I started studying Commonwealth, and looked at what we need is shared assets to create an infrastructure that enlightens humanity and preserves nature. So that's the basis of, and I've been following economics. I studied economics a bit in college, and I've been following economics, and there are about a dozen people who have been writing over the last 25 years, from E.F. Schumacher, Buddhist economics. He wrote a book called Small is Beautiful, and there was a thing called voluntary simplicity. There is...
Was the man, I think he was from Indonesia, and he started microloans?
That's right.
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
It's with a G. Grameen Foundation, I believe, Grameen Bank. And so they provided microloans. Then there's other streams, Hazel Henderson's work, David Coteen's work. There's many great people. And now there's a young man he wrote a book called Sacred Economics. And there's these streams that have been moving towards a sacred, loving economics for many, many years. And it's now, people are starting to talk about it more, and we need an international conference, an international council on sacred, loving economics. We need an annual meeting, just that they have like meetings elsewhere around the world, Davos and, G8, right. We need sacred, loving economics to care for each other and to care for the planet.
No more dog eat dog?
No, we need win-win-win instead of win-lose.
Yes.
We need collaboration instead of competition. Competition is good in a way, but it only is good so far. It can destroy, it destroys the enemy companies, the other companies. Mm-hmm. And we take that feeling of competition home into our family life, and we end up destroying our families because we're not loving and caring inside our families.
Can you tell me, this is obviously the message of your book, and I think an important one. What other ways, besides the book, do you get this message out?
Well, I'm doing workshops on various levels. I'll be having a workshop October 18th in the Sheridan in Comac. No, I don't.
Oh, I thought that was the
No,
flyer.
this is a description of what the book is about. I'd be happy to read that. But the workshop is on October 18th in the Sheridan, and that is in Hauppauge.
Okay.
Yeah. And that will be on gaining wellness, using affirmations, and sharing love. So it takes people through their personal well-being and using affirmations to create true abundance and true love, and then share that love.
Yeah, Well, this is a personal question of mine. I believe that a lot of the ills of the world stem from the fact that people have anger. So many people are so angry. Does your book deal at all with getting rid of that?
Yes, it deals, I talk about the anger and resentment that many recovery groups try to deal with. They call it character defects, but it's
12-step programs.
Yeah, 12-step programs. It's that when you do an inventory of yourself in those programs, what you usually see is that, and Al-Anon talks about this a lot, that there's anger, resentment, self-pity, a lot of sadness, and you need to be able to go through those things and transform them. That anger is usually something that has occurred deep in the past, or
Deep
even
hurt.
today, deeper in the past. Something was violated.
Deep hurt. It's deep hurt.
Below the anger is often hurt. Exactly right. And something occurred, and you need to revisit that and heal yourself for that. And the resentment that comes from that, if you don't get rid of that resentment, it turns in on your body, and it'll hurt your body.
It absolutely does. I taught school for many years, and I worked with teenagers, and teenagers are often characterized by the fact that they're such an angry group. And I try to look at my students and see what's the source of that anger. And I think it's the hurt that they feel is that they've been given a message that they're going to have things that they're not going to have in reality. And I think that's something they have to work through. So we have to start to think about the messages, I guess, we give our kids.
So could you say that again, that they're being given messages that...
Yeah, you're going to... First of all, one of the messages is everybody's a winner, nobody's a loser, but you like win-win. But everybody gets a trophy in a sport. And it's sort of, there are winners and losers. And it's unrealistic because when they get out in the world, not everyone is going to be president. Not everybody is going to be top dog. And I think they get that message, and they also get the message that they will have everything their parents provide them without ever doing anything.
Yeah, that's kids need to learn how to motivate themselves every day and empower themselves, and we often disempower youth.
That's right.
And they need a place to have their voice heard and be involved with creative projects in the community. I used to work for a Boys and Girls Club, and the goal there is to get the children to empower themselves and get involved with the community. And we need to, so I use co-empowerment, communications, collaboration, and then co-creativity as basic processes that people can use to free their spirit, get back into the game of life, and get back into helping to create sustainable communities that we need in an empowered way. We need to empower youth, and we need to empower adults and seniors to become involved, not to just stay home in watching television and the internet, and get out there and do something to help your community.
We also have a cultural bias against seniors in that seniors are more or less invisible in our society, and they're really not, but sometimes that's the way they're looked at, and they are an incredible resource because they have so much experience.
It's true, and the nonprofits are in great difficulty. I worked in nonprofits for 40 years, and they're in great difficulty with funding, but they could use the resources and the talent and the ability of seniors if they could figure out how to tap back into the seniors and get them to help the community. We need to find ways for teenagers to help seniors, for seniors to help teenagers.
Well, it's your philosophy of, feeding each other, which I think is very beautiful. I'm going to change the subject a little because when I spoke to you previously, you talked about a project you have having to do with Gandhi. Would you like to talk about Gandhi?
Yes. In Chapter 5 on community love, on altruistic community love, it's about idealism and how an idealistic love is so powerful. Gandhi's work was all about nonviolent or compassionate social change, loving social change. He developed an incredible methodology. He helped in Africa. He liberated India. He was the founder of, essentially the father, they view him as the father of India, and his work in nonviolent social change influenced Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King studied his work. Martin Luther King received the Nobel Prize. There's a picture that you can see with Martin Luther King standing there, and in the background on his wall was Gandhi.
Picture of Gandhi, yeah.
And so Gandhi never received the Nobel Prize. And yet, you look on the internet, all over the internet, is programs and projects that are drawing influence from Gandhi.
From what he did, sure.
A man approached me, an Indian man, was a businessman here in the United States for many years, and he wants me to help him write a book called Gandhi and the Nobel Prize, to try to get the Nobel Prize for Gandhi. And it'll be an explanation of why he didn't receive it. It'll be calling on luminaries from around the world to contribute to that book. And then it'll be activists who are using Gandhian principles. And then there'll be a campaign to create this on the internet, to create a movement to get the prize for Gandhi. Although the Nobel Committee has said they will not give out prizes posthumously. And I believe it was in 1979 they made that policy. But we're going to have that campaign anyway and promote peaceful social change through this effort and Gandhi's work again.
That's a worthwhile, beautiful idea. Yeah, he has influenced the world. I mean, and sometimes I hope that there is an evolution occurring amongst people and their spirit to go towards more peaceful things than warring all the time. You have such a diverse portfolio of things you do. Can you tell me about your involvement? You are the executive director of the Dix Hills Performing Arts Center. What does that involve?
The Dix Hills Performing Arts Center is at Five Towns College in Dix Hills. And we have 3 levels of performances there. First we have student performances. It's a showcase for the students and the faculty, and they perform wonderfully at a very inexpensive price, like $10 we charge for these wonderful performances. And the community loves it. They come out and they enjoy it. And it's in vocals, it's in great music, it's in choral work, it's in concert pops, it's in
they do drama,
cabaret, drama, plays, comedy. We have incredible musical productions that is probably about 80 to 90% of what Broadway is, at a price that's like $15 to $18. And people say that when they go to Broadway, it can cost them $600 for an evening at Broadway.
I just went to a Broadway show last night. Well, I didn't take 5 people with me, but it's expensive. It's very expensive.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful thing. And then we have a second level. We provide a space for Long Island musicians and artists to perform on a beautiful stage. And so we have great regional performers performing rock for the most part and jazz. And the audience loves that too. And that's at a relatively inexpensive night. It's $25 to $35 a ticket. And then the third level is we have world-class performers, like we have Julie Budd and Marilyn Michaels coming in, and we have other people coming in this summer. So we have some great artists as well, and that's relatively inexpensive as well.
Now, is a program like this self-sustaining financially, or do you get funding?
We get a little bit of funding from the county, has been generous on a couple of occasions. It provides money for our fall guitar festival, and we bring in international guitarists. And so the county has given us some money for that. The New York State Council on the Arts has given us a little bit of money. And we have private sponsors, D'Addario Strings, D'Addario Guitars has provided money for us, and other string companies. And we get funding mostly from the money we raise, the revenue, and then Five Towns College has been very supportive as well.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to hear. I think Nassau County in general. No, this is Suffolk County.
Suffolk County. We're on the borderline of Suffolk and Nassau.
Yeah, so am I, where I live. But I think You're lucky to be on Long Island because the counties are really very supportive of these kinds of activities.
Yes.
Which makes it nice. What was I going to ask you now? I wanted to ask you about the children's gardens.
Oh, that was one of my favorite projects that I created in 1979 to 1985. It was called Universal Children's Gardens. I had been doing some research and seeing around the world that there was some wonderful projects going on with gardens around the world, and I realized that children, at the same time, there was hunger in the world, and so I decided I was going to try to create a project for the world, for children, to learn how to garden and learn how to also then connect with each other as pen pals around the world to create peace. So the motto was creating peace, love, kindness, and I forget exactly what it was.
Peace, love, and kindness is a good
peace, love,
start.
and kindness, and is growing.
Cooperation?
Growing food, flowers, trees, peace, hope, and love.
Oh.
That's what it was.
So that's really a worthwhile project.
Yeah.
So I would like you now to sum up what you would like to say about your book. I know you have something that you wanted to read there, and then give us your final message about your message, because your message is very, very, very important.
Thank you. What is 7 Keys to Love about? I wrote this because I thought you were going to ask me a question like this. I wrote this last night, and I loved writing it because you get clearer and clearer. It's 7 Keys to Love takes the reader on a journey, love's journey, as it passes through different dimensions, from loving the self to loving others to being in relationship and loving communications, to intimacy, to love in the family and community, to love for the arts, love for creativity, love for nature and the creation, to love for the creative universe, God, and then brings the reader back to what I call transformational love, to help our families, communities, and the world.
Thank you, Sandy. That was really beautiful, and good luck with this message.
Thank you.
Okay.